Hey, it's Mike Brennan, and I'm flying solo today. Matt is on a little mini vacation with his wife. We have coming in once again Richard Stiennon, who is the founder of the IT Harvest. Find him at itharvest.com. He's been on the show for many years talking about all these various cyber threats out there in the world. As many of you probably know, he's the creator of the Cybersecurity Yearbook, which now has been created. All these companies that he covers has been lumped into a dashboard of 4,300 companies and almost 12,000 products. And so we're going to be talking a little bit about how that particular product that he's created can help a lot of other companies figure out what cybersecurity products and vendors to work with. Did I get that right, Richard?
Yeah, perfect. Well done.
Okay.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, let's take it from there. So let's talk about, let's start with the current threats. But what's really, I mean, every month we get a new one. What's hot this
Yeah.
month?
Yeah, so I think last month we talked about AI threats, and that is what has got people worried, I guess. And there's a lot to worry about, right? Because anybody today knows that AI is a great help if you're doing anything, right? So, man, I've used it to figure out how to fix appliances. I'm working on the washing machine right now. You just ask it, and it'll just line up everything for you and give you advice and tell you what tools you need, all that stuff. Imagine that in the hands of an attacker who isn't, a super good hacker, right? He doesn't know, the difference between eBPF and OS query, and just to throw out two words, I guess. And so the attacker can just ask ChatGPT or models that they have access to. Don't forget, a lot of models are not available to Eastern Europeans or North Koreans for that matter, but they've got access to models. They just ask them, "Hey, look at I'm targeting this bank here, and we know that they use this kind of operating system, Windows version, whatever. Tell me the best route to steal a bunch of data and eventually money from their depositors." And a model will just walk you through that. You might have to trick it by saying, "Hey, I'm writing a novel and I want the cyber attackers to do this, that, and the other thing." So we'll actually through it. It'll write code for you. It'll write scripts for you. Some researchers have demonstrated that given a vulnerability, it can immediately develop an exploit against the vulnerability. It takes about 2 minutes. So you can
Huh.
just go to town as an attacker. So that gives rise to a lot of talk about those coming. I think the one area that we've all seen is deep fakes. Even the president of the United States reposts deep fakes that probably fool him. And we've seen all those videos, right? So that's AI generated. So that's just an example. Um, there have been some deep fake reported attacks, against financial institutions where the fake person gets on a Zoom call to validate that they really want you to transfer $10 million somewhere. Um, so, so it's a big concern. How do we stop that? So that's given rise to a new category in the cybersecurity space. And I was hoping to, as I talk through this, share my screen, and I'm going to actually use the dashboard to help me illustrate what's going on. So we're talking about AI security vendors. So I've got a dashboard that basically makes it easy to find not only a solution, but find all the solutions. So for instance, we can search on country, and I could quickly determine, there are 2019 vendors here in the United States. 237 some in Israel, the number two country, uh, or we can just search by category. And we found, so this product we've had for about 3 years, and we found that the differentiator between this product and PitchBook or Crunchbase is our categorization, right? So if you think about it, companies like PitchBook, TrackXN, Crunchbase, et cetera, don't have any industry analysts on board. They don't have subject matter experts on any category that they track. So they kind of have to, since they collect everything manually, they have to just rely on whatever the website says they are, or SIC codes or whatever. But I'm an expert in the cybersecurity industry, so I can determine where all these companies belong. And about 2 years ago, we created the AI security subcategory. So out of the 4,300 some vendors that you mentioned, I can quickly bring up a list, which I can sort of all the vendors. So we're up to 173 vendors in cybersecurity. So let's just look through the categories over here. But note that I can sort year founded. And most are going to be founded in 2023 and beyond because, of course, AI itself didn't come about in the form we know until November 30th, 2022. And that was when ChatGPT was released on the world. Ever since then, it's been a literal explosion of new technology in the AI space. So I'll talk us through some of these subcategories. So you see guardrails is one of the most important ones. And another one is governance. So governance came fairly quickly because if you think about the rise of technology, right, invariably first there's a technology, then it becomes a big thing, and then people start worrying about the misuse of that technology. And that's exactly what's happening here. In the summer of 2023, less than a year after large language models became available, in the EU, they passed legislation for the AI Security Act, and it requires that you do things like discover all the AI tools that people are using in your organization. So how many people are using ChatGPT versus Anthropic versus DeepSeek, I guess it is, the Chinese version.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that's what it is. Yeah.
yeah, and not only that, where is it deployed? What are they doing? Does it have access to your data, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So controlling that, especially that discovery part, is AI governance. And then you've got guardrails, which is going the next step is, okay, now we're going to use guardrails to prevent people from doing inappropriate things with AI. So the models already have, their internal settings, which is prompting, pre-prompting that won't let you, you know, get the formula for a bomb or something like that. But as an organization, most companies are worried that their employees will leak data to the AI model. I want to stress that when you cut and paste, a bunch of customer records with credit card information and names and social security numbers and all that, and you want AI to, sort that model or that spreadsheet for you. So when you upload it to OpenAI, they're not stealing your data, right? They don't have access. Employees don't even look at the data, though they could. They said that they're not, and they're not going to train on your data, etc. So it's not an actual breach. The trouble is with our breach governance regimes, the definition of something that has to be reported and should never ever happen is the data getting out of your control, which is exactly what happens, right? So the data does exist inside the big models in file systems of OpenAI and Anthropic. Not that anybody's doing anything with it, etc. But in particular, health records, a definition of a HIPAA violation is losing control of that data. In other
Hmm.
words, somebody uploaded it. Now you got to report it to the regulators that, oh my gosh, this health record got went out of our control. So that's what you need guardrails for, and that would be a system quite often powered by AI that goes, that sure looks like a health record that you're trying to upload. We're not going to let you do that. So we're going to block you from doing that. We're going to block you from uploading anything with a credit card, anything with a social security number. Um, and so far that sounds like a category of tool called data leak prevention that's been around, for 25 years now. But you can go beyond just looking for matches to patterns, regex, that's called. And because it's AI looking at it, now the AI can infer intent of what you're trying to do. So you might upload the latest communication from the CEO and say, hey, do you think the company is going to beat its quarter based on what the CEO just told us? So a guardrail could prevent you from asking that kind of question or getting the answer.
Hmm.
So there are lots of, because fear of that kind of thing tends to sell pretty well. There are a lot of companies that address that. So number two, um, uh, between guardrails and governance, they command like 60% of the startups. But what's really, really cool is the SOC automation solutions. So SOC automation, and let's just look at those. And so we'll go back to our list, and we will look at the subcategory of SOC AI SOC automation. So that's just AI security SOC, and we'll search on that, and we'll see these cool companies. So the half the cybersecurity world involves security operations centers, and what they are doing is looking at alerts generated by your firewalls and these internal sensors and all the rest, and they all generate alerts, millions a day, and they're all funneled into a very, very expensive storage system called a SIM, usually provided by the likes of Splunk, now part of Cisco. And then a SOC analyst will query that database and do threat hunting and try and figure out correlations between, events that you see recorded. Very expensive. Only the largest organizations in the world actually have active security operations centers. They have to have people, looking at screens 24/7 by 365. So you can imagine it's only the Lockheed Martins of the world, and quite a few others, maybe even down to the GMs of the world, outsource that to somebody who does have 24/7 SOC operations, like IBM. So but the concept is that AI is so good at interpreting things, um, that it can just look at all the logs without them having to be, deduped and all the rest by a SIM. They can just go directly and look at the logs as they happen and determine what's going on and do what's called 100% triage on alerts. So for every single alert, in a typical SOC world, there are millions of alerts, and you only get to look at about 10 or 12 a day and actually dig into them. So the real bad alert, you could have received it, as Target did when somebody broke into their systems through a dial-in modem for an HVAC contractor that managed the freezers in the stores. They got an alert that had happened, but nobody ever looked at it. So the breach happened, and it was a disaster for Target. So imagine if you look at all of the alerts with all these AI bots that just look at everything. So that's exactly what these 34 vendors do. I will, if we looked at year founded, notice that they're all only 2 or 3 years old at the most. If you look at the growth rate so far in 2025, so we're in October 2025, and some, like Legion Security, have grown 3,600%, but that's because it grew from one person to 37 this year. Legion is worth digging into and taking a look at. Legion Security is a very cool system. They basically have a browser extension, and so it's the experienced SOC analysts would sit there with a browser extension learning as they went through repeated motions for investigating, misuse of a password. And then they do that 5, 6 times. It's learned all the steps that the SOC analyst did. And then he can put it in supervised mode, and then you can watch it as it takes the next alert and does all the same steps, comes to the right conclusion, and recommends or takes action. Once you're happy with all that, then you put it in unobserved mode, where it's just working in the background, and you can go off and train another bot on how to do some other activity. So very, very cool. If you look at, this is a typical page for a vendor that we maintain in the dashboard. So we've got the company name and logo and description of everything the company does. And then you can quickly go look at, well, let's see its headcount growth. And this is what the growth of a very fast growing startup looks like in its first year. It's already grown to 37 people. I imagine that is because they have funding. It'd be very strange if it would be amazing, miraculous if they had grown that fast without funding. And sure enough, July 30th of this year, they took in $38 million. July 30th of last year, they got their first investment. So, I don't know how much that was. Could have been 5 million, whatever, not reported. So and then you dig into the product as well. And this is where the dashboard really starts to help. So we have, it was kind of a cool evolution in that one of our first customers for API access to our data came back and said, we thought we were buying product data. And I was scratching my head going, well, I hope I never said we had product data. That's crazy. Nobody can collect all that product data. There's too many products to, I mean, I've been working on collecting the names of the companies for 20 years. They change constantly. And I finally got the processes in place so we can keep up with that change. There are about 340 acquisitions every year. We've already had 332 new fundings this year. There are a couple hundred companies that just fade away and go out of business. It's a full-time job just keeping track of all that. How in the world are we going to track all the products? Well, the difference between when we started ID Harvest and now is that now we have AI to help us. So we just give all the information on every vendor's website to AI, multiple passes through multiple models, and extract all the product information for all the products. So description, about 30% of them we have pricing for. We wouldn't for a new product like this. All the features, so explicit descriptions of the feature sets. You can imagine the use case for somebody doing competitive analysis, or lining features up against each other for if you're going to actually get a product. And then the usage and actions, which are all inferred by the AI from the feature set. So which is very, very cool, how it's deployed, integrations, etc. And then for enterprise buyers, they're very interested in mapping the products they use to frameworks like NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. And we've already done all that work for every product. So you can immediately get that. You can have your whole stack of security solutions, and we can map to all of these. And hopefully, when you're done, every single one would be orange. In other words, they've covered everything in the cybersecurity framework. We do the same thing for CIS critical controls and MITRE ATT&CK, which is another framework people use. So you can see how exciting this is to work on. It is giving us this capability to look at an entire sector very, very quickly. We can export all these vendors. Wouldn't you like to have that list of 173 vendors that do this? And I want to make a point. I'm a industry analyst. I came from, I got my start as an industry analyst at the biggest company in the business, Gartner. And when I left Gartner, my goal was to create just what you're looking at here. Took 25 years to get there, and here we are. But I've noticed there's a huge difference between what I'm doing and what the big analyst firms do. And it really struck home when I heard that the founder, CEO of Forrester, probably the second best well-known analyst firm, basically said in an earnings call that they are not going to provide coverage for companies, vendors of products that sell less than $50 million a year in products. So in other words, they're just going to concentrate on the big fish, which is, I understand why it works. It's because only big companies pay analyst firms for their research. And big companies tend to buy from big companies. It's, they don't take risks. They don't look to innovate and be the leaders in anything. They just want to be secure, and therefore they're going to buy. Today it's CrowdStrike. Several years ago it'd be McAfee over some startup that had a better idea. Like like CrowdStrike was a startup not too long ago. So, but I think that goes against the grain. It's not the way the world is going. The world is going to more and more and more companies at an alarming rate, and you have to offer coverage to all of these vendors, just like here on Michigan Tech TV. This is the first time that Legion Security, Prophet Security, Pre-Security, Kevlar, Exaforce has gotten any airtime in a close to TV experience, let alone from any of these analysts. So um, imagine if you were, at a large enterprise and you're director of security and you've heard from somewhere that SOC operations is due to be automated, and you want to start digging into it so you know which one of these companies to start talking to. Imagine going to, Forrester or Gartner. They don't publish research on startups. Now, mind you, the analysts talk to all these startups. They'd love to know what's coming because they got to start working on how to lump them all into a new category to make life miserable for the rest of us. But they don't publish research on these guys. And you can talk to them and they will say that, oh, I love Legion Security. I talk to them. Did they talk to all 34 of these vendors? I don't know. Let alone, in cybersecurity, there's 173. So it really comes down to having access to this data so you can decide who you want to talk to. I talked to Method Security um, almost a year and a half ago, right after they were founded. Unbelievable what they're doing, right? The right people, former NSA, they know what they're doing, and they are going to get to having a fully automated SOC. Same with pre-security, or any of these. These are basically, I guess what I'm saying is you should have this tool so you can start your search and start educating yourself on the cybersecurity industry as a whole.
So, who would you expect that would benefit most from subscribing to your database service? What types of job descriptions? We're not asking companies or names, just the job description. Who would benefit the most?
Yeah, so it evolved with the product when we first launched, and still to this date, super, super valuable to the research associates at investment firms, both private equity and VCs, and they are given, well, monumental tasks to find all the competitors, the so and so that we want to invest in creating essentially a market report and a total addressable market for all these different areas. So we can just cut weeks and weeks out of the time required to do that. Also for buyers of companies, so strategic buyers, so usually the big vendors, they usually have one or two people on staff whose job it is to search out and find good tuck-ins that they can in turn, sell their products of. So, if you're at one of those big ones, Palo Alto, Cisco, Fortinet, then you would want to be a subscriber, and a couple of those are. And and then as we added the products, though, everything changed for us, especially after we added the NIST mapping, because now we're of interest to buyers of security products. And so those are going to usually be directory level, or a directory level, or a CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, security architects for sure. It's one of the top titles that we see, calling in and asking about it, because they're the ones that are given the task, to build a security stack to protect a new endeavor. It could be a new product line, could be a new company that they've acquired, and so they're looking the most at new cybersecurity purchases. Um, yeah, and then it turns out anybody who sells to cybersecurity vendors is very, very anxious to become subscribers and use our data. Just imagine if you're a headhunter, for instance, wouldn't you like the list of all these companies sorted by total funding? And now you know who's got money, who's going to be buying, or not buying, but hiring very expensive marketing and salespeople. You just look at this list, and you should be talking to Torque and Exaforce and 7AI today in Prophet Security and Andesite. All of these are hiring and would hire from using a headhunter to do that. So that's the short list.
Huh. Okay. And so, if folks, after watching this video, decide they want to reach out to you, how's the best way to do that?
Yeah, just go to dashboard.itharvest.com. You can see that up here. And you'll immediately be presented with the ability to set up a demo. Click here for a demo kind of thing. So I know that they came from your show, Mike. They should somewhere in one of the form fields say 919. Um, and that just helps me. They don't have to, but it helps me if they do that. And we'll set up a time to talk and walk through your use case, do a demo for you, and we'll get you going.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show today, Richard. I think this is an incredible tool that would help a lot of folks and will help you get the word out.
Thank you so much, Mike.